voters are busy. They're not stupid. We eat, sleep, breathe politics, but most people don't. And it's not that they don't care. It's that they're busy and have lots of things going on in their lives. So make it easy to connect with voters and don't make the assumption they don't understand or they're stupid about a policy issue, but they're just busy and they just need more information. And that's what you're there for.
What do you find is most difficult for Democratic political campaigns in crafting their messaging, and how can Democrats be better at it? And this one I will toss over to Amy.
Yeah, I was going to toss it to Tom because I feel like he's already answered this question. I think he really summed it up, I think, very well, which is that a lot of times Democrats talk in 4-syllable words when a 1-syllable word would also answer that question. And, as someone who puts 18 hours a day into a campaign and lives and breathes politics, and when I'm not working on a campaign, I'm reading Politico or whatever, I get lost sometimes in all of the things that I think I know, and all of the policy nuance and whatever. And I really like to call some of my friends who I've known since I was a wee child and are not politically active, the ones I have to remind to go mail in their ballots and say, what do you think about this issue? Because they don't know any of the nuance and any of the policy and any of the fighting. And I think about the situation with abortion and the situation about gun control, right? Those of us who follow politics closely understand the nuance of why the Congress is not getting anything done, but normal voters don't. Normal voters just know that they voted to, give Democrats control of the legislature, and they voted to give Democrats control of the White House. And then they say, where's the action? And so it's got to be simple and it's got to be clear. And I thought Tom did a great job explaining that earlier.
Yeah, well, thank you for the hat tip. I think the biggest challenge that we have as Democrats is that it's also our strength, right? And it was kind of built into the question that diversity is our strength. But the Democratic Party is a big tent party. We're the party of an inclusion, not exclusion. And when that's the case, we have a lot of people with a lot of sometimes competing priorities, and each of them, each section of people that make up the Democratic Party have their own messaging about how they talk about their priorities. And so it becomes overwhelming. And, it's Democrats need to be better at discipline in their messaging and really focusing on what matters to their specific voters, as we talked about in the beginning, and what those values are. And despite all of the diversity that the Democratic Party has, but also just as people, as Americans, right? There are certain values that we all share. And so the key, I think, for us as we're figuring out how to message in campaigns is to talk about values and broadly talk about them and tie them to the issues that you're running on, in order to show, especially if you're running in a swing district or a Republican-leaning district. In order to pick up traction, you're going to have to be able to show how my values as a Democrat is just like your values as a Republican or an independent. We all believe that those people who go to work should make a decent living and not have to live paycheck to paycheck, right? That's something that everybody can agree on. And it's a part of who we are as a society. And so figuring out how to message in that framework, I think helps to simplify the complexity a little bit.
100% totally agree. We so love to talk policy details when voters want to know what your values are. And how are you making decisions on those policy details when you get elected? So story sharing is such a critical piece. There are lots of NDTC trainings on this. I know because I do them on crafting and sharing your story of self and how to connect to voters on those stories. Because voters remember those stories at the door, and why policy issues are important to you it comes from your lived experience. So talk about that and talk about who you are. People want to be listened to and understand where you're coming from. I'll share a story. I remember having some long conversations at the doors with voters who, we disagreed on a lot of the policy issues that I was running on, but they appreciated hearing my perspective and my background and ultimately supported me. And I have people who email me asking me questions. If I don't agree, I'll share where I'm coming from, what information I utilize, what my lived experience was that brought me to that perspective. And I have people saying a lot to me, I don't agree with you, but I appreciate that you responded and you explained, and I'll continue to support you, So that surprised me. I think we're so conditioned sometimes as candidates to want to be liked, that it's really hard to have that conversation and understand that people just want to be listened to and understand where you're coming from. The other thing, and I hope you remember this when you're out campaigning, either as a candidate or staffer, is that voters are busy. They are not stupid. Voters are busy. They're not stupid. It's so easy to forget that the voters are not wrapped up in all the politics like we are. I'm worried about Amy's sleep schedule, but that's a different problem for a different day. But that's pretty common that we eat, sleep, breathe politics, but most people don't. And it's not that they don't care. It's that they're busy and have lots of things going on in their lives. So, make it easy to connect with voters, and don't make the assumption they don't understand or they're stupid about a policy issue, but they're just busy and they just need more information. And that's what you're there for.
Yeah. And something, Judy, that you just said that really hit home with me is that they want to hear that you're approachable, but they also want you to be honest. Your city councilors people in your city want to know, people don't like politics. And part of the reason they don't like them is they feel like people are lying to them all the time. People are saying one thing and doing another. And something I hear about my boss all the time is I know that you don't agree with me, but I know you will always give me an honest answer and you will always have my vote. And that goes a long way, especially with, when you're trying to win over independents or Republicans who will not and will never agree with you on policy issues. But if you say, I will always hear you out and I will always be honest with you about what I think, that can really mean something to people on a personal level.
Mm-hmm. Hi, I'm Anthony Robinson, NDTC's political director. For more like this, please sign up at traindemocrats.org. Thanks for watching.